Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2025-2026 Student Member of the Board of Education debate. My name is Jason Semenoff Jr., and I'm honored to serve as CRASC Secretary of Education. I will be tonight's moderator. It's super exciting to be sitting on the dais, as I usually give the CRASC update at the podium. But now I'm here tonight moderating the debate. Before we begin the debate, will everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here's how tonight's debate will work. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves. Speaking order was determined randomly by students prior to the debate. Questions for the candidates have been submitted by members of CRASC, as well as online via our website, aacps.org/CRASC. We will not be taking questions from the audience. The candidates did not have the opportunity to review the questions prior to the debate. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question with an optional 30-second rebuttal. Speakers will be given a 15-second reminder during the debate and any rebuttals. We are limiting rebuttals to 2 per question per candidate. Please be advised that this debate is being broadcast live on AACPS TV via AACPS's YouTube channel, and as a recommendation for our non-English speaking audience, you may turn on closed captions in a translated language on the YouTube channel. Once all questions have been addressed, tonight's debate will be concluded. At this time, we would like everyone to silence their cell phones. Now we will start with introductions. First up will be Michelle Fidel from Chesapeake High School.
This election isn't just about picking a name. It's about choosing a vision that includes all of us. Every student, every school, and our voices matter. When we work together, we can achieve so much. That's what this moment is about. Unity, our voices, and action. My name is Michelle Fidel, a junior at Chesapeake High School, and I'm honored to be the finalist for the Student Member of the Board of Education. In our campaign, we are running on 3 main pillars: advocacy, connection, and elevation. Our goals includes improving mental health awareness. So by working with wellness liaisons in schools and having slides and videos during Unity Day, we can spread the message. Our goal, we also want every student to know what SMOB is, because too many don't even know that the role exists. So an orientation video at the start of the school year can change that. And school visits to elementary, middle, and high school will help us engage and understand school-specific challenges. We'll continue the work of our current SMOB by keeping the advisory council, but expanding them by having open meetings where anyone can join, share their ideas, and also voice their concerns. And this is just a glimpse of the many ideas we are ready to bring to life. Now, I've had the privilege to take action at the school, county, and state level, not just holding titles, but also making real impact. I've led student discussions to address school concerns, written testimony for AACPS bills, organized statewide service projects, and was honored to be the first student keynote speaker at the Avid Leadership Conference. I've worked to create spaces where student voices aren't just heard, they are valued. These experiences taught me how to listen, lead, and act, but more importantly, they've shown me what we can accomplish when we do it together. With the ingredients of advocacy, connection, and elevation together, we can cook up real change within AACPS. Because a vote for Michelle is a vote for us all. Thank you for your time.
Next up, we'll go to Jack Warwick from Chesapeake Science Point.
Good afternoon, AACPS. I'm Jack Warwick, and I'm here today to show you what I stand for and why I deserve to be your next student member on the Board of Education. I've been in this county all my life, and I've been in public schools for every day of my life, up through the present day. I'm a huge believer in our public school system, and part of believing in the greatness of AACPS is accepting its flaws and working to fix them. Over my time in this county, I've noticed injustices, inequities, in areas where AACPS simply does not communicate things effectively. These issues are numerous and multifaceted, which is where I come in. I've spoken and continue to speak with students across our county, taking in their concerns and beginning to work out solutions to problems. Part of being in such a diverse county is recognizing that I cannot speak for every single student without taking into account their own voices and their own perspectives. By listening to the voices and stories of students from so many different backgrounds across our vast county, I come to you today to represent and advocate for every single one of those voices. My platform, GEMS, is focused on eliminating inequities, increasing support for students, and helping students to take advantage of opportunities. Here in AACPS, we offer a multitude of opportunities to help students set themselves up for the best futures possible. And we don't do enough to provide students with access to it. We don't go into classrooms to teach about these opportunities. We don't get into the middle school and elementary school levels to really provide the tools that they need. Currently, your socioeconomic background and your districted school dictate far too much of your potential and the services available to you. I want to end that, and I'm committed to bringing about common sense reforms that serve every student to reach that end. Furthermore, I'm here to fight for you. I've been a passionate advocate for the student body of my school and my county for a long time now. In my school, I led widespread constitutional revisions and refocused our SGA to care about what really matters, the student body. At the county level, as CRASC parliamentarian, I led the charge in bringing about proposed amendments to the bylaws that would allow the students to have more of a choice in future SMOB elections through increased participation. Even at the statewide level, I've worked to bring about positive change that would ultimately create a process that favored the students, not the MASC executive board. I've always been committed to serving the best interests of the students that I represent, and that will not change if elected. I'm not afraid of doing anything and everything in my power to fight for the students. I'm not the one to become disheartened at the first sign of resistance, and I hope to demonstrate today my problem solving, my creative solutions, and my common sense initiatives. Thank you so much for the honor of becoming a finalist and being here today.
Next, we will move to Braden Morgan from Glen Burnie High School.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Braden Morgan, and I'm incredibly honored to sit before you today as one of your SMOB finalists. If you had told anyone, even myself, 2 years ago that I'd be sitting here, they probably would have laughed at you. Back then, I was entering high school unsure of who I was, unsure of where I fit, and definitely not on the honor roll or any leadership positions. I didn't see myself as someone who had a voice worth hearing. This all started to change when I met someone who believed in me before I believed in myself. My school service liaison, Sarah DeMana. Ms. DeMana introduced me to service, to leadership, and what it really means to give back. It was during my first big grant-involved project, my sophomore year, while watching other students get involved, that I knew this was for me. Since then, I've committed myself to doing the work, not just talking about change, but being part of it. I've worked with students from all backgrounds. And what I've learned is this: every voice matters. Whether you're the loudest in the room or the quietest, your story, your struggles, and your dreams deserve to be heard. That's why I'm here today. Not to represent Braden Morgan, not to represent Glen Burnie, but to represent you, to represent the students. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what you come from, you have a story and a journey worth sharing. My journey to this moment has not been perfect, but it's been real. And that's exactly the kind of leadership I want to bring. One that's honest, grounded, and driven by experience. I believe we need a SMOB who knows what it's like to face setbacks and still show up, who knows what it's like to feel unheard and still show up. And so we can fight and act boldly and hear every student from every school, from every zip code, and every background so they can feel like they belong in this county. We see far too often students go unheard, or students, there's no action taken upon what they are trying to say and what they are trying to fight for. Together, we're not just going to lead. We're going to reflect the full, beautiful, diverse truth of AACPS. And I promise, I and we will do everything in our power to make sure every student's voice is not only heard, but elevated and action are taken upon those words. Thank you.
At this time, we will begin with the questions. So first, let's get to know these candidates. So this question will be starting with Michelle. Share a few of your greatest character traits that you think would make you an effective SMOB in AACPS.
Thank you, Jason, for that question. So a few of my characteristic traits that I believe would make me the strongest is that, first of all, my energy. I think this helps me really get to connect with the audience and also relate to students then and there. And also my organization skills and time management. Going into this position, you're going to be having to attend meetings. You're going to have to balance student life. So making sure you can balance those two separate worlds would make sure that you can effectively carry out these projects. And lastly, I also like to go with the flow, making sure that being flexible with whatever happens, because there's a lot of things that are going to occur, a lot of pressure and heat from various groups, but making sure to stay poised when that happens. So making sure I have my energy, organized and time management, and also going with the flow would be some of my characteristic traits right there.
Thank you. Braden?
Thank you for the question, Jason. I believe my biggest and my one of my favorite personality and personal leadership traits that I will bring to the Board of Education is my ability to resolute conflicts and understand other point of views. Through my background and through the way I've gone throughout my education, and being in different classrooms, being able to complete at least one semester in every level of classrooms that we offer in AACPS, I've been able to hear and work with students from all different kinds of backgrounds. And so being able to hear and understand, students, even when our opinions and what we stand for may differ, and still work collaboratively as leaders and resolute conflicts in a peaceful manner, is what I believe I bring to the Board of Education.
Thank you. Jack?
I think my passion, my drive, and my perseverance are really what elevates me as a candidate. My number one concern has always been the students. I've always been here to fight for you. And I think that I really do have a passion for this field of civics and student government. In terms of my drive, drive and perseverance. I don't stop when things get tough. I know being a SMOB can be really difficult, especially with the amount of conflict that can happen between board members sometimes. And I think it's really important that I am able to persevere through that and make sure that I'm still representing the voices that I need to be representing and elevating those voices throughout my work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll be starting with Braden. Identify a time or experience that motivated you to pursue this position.
Thank you for the question, Jason. I can think back to hearing certain students and certain concerns after an incident we had my sophomore year, and there was students talking about certain resolutions and how we can move forward after our what we call gopher blocks, our lunch periods, were canceled, and watching students try to advocate for solutions and advocate for things like that. And then a few weeks later, hearing about SMOB and starting to understand what the role was, helped me realize that there are many great minds and many great voices throughout our county that many times go unheard. And being that person, being a leader on the board that can help those students and not be their voice, but help them and give them pathways to use their voice, encouraged me, and is the reason that I am running for this position.
Thank you. Jack?
I would say that it's not really about a specific event. It's more of a culmination. But if I did have to choose one specific event, it would be at my school SGA when it was time for constitutional revisions. We had a lot of issues in our Constitution, and I really didn't like the state of things. So over the course of a few weeks and a few meetings, I really kind of led the charge there in revising this. And that made me realize that I really do have this passion, and I really do kind of have this motivation to make things better, especially when it comes to the student body. And I think that yeah, that overall experience did really tell me, hey, I can do something here and I really want to take this as far as possible because I can make a positive change in my school community. And I think through running for this position, I'm really reaching that culmination of what I've been working towards for so many years now. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
I believe there's so many moments in throughout my life that have made me want to run for this position. But to highlight one specifically, when I was in middle school during 8th grade, I wasn't involved in student government initially, but when I got started, I went to different class meetings and then I ran for middle school coordinator. And at that moment, when I went to class meetings, when I realized that my middle school experience is different from all people across the county. I thought that the biggest issues were school lunches and bathrooms, but then being in a position in the county allowed me to know the various things going on around our county that needed to be heard and listened, but also making change. Being part of classes allowed me to not just only hear the concerns, but also create change and work with others. So I feel like that moment, when starting in my county student government, got me connected with the county and also allowed me to hear the issues as well as how to effectively address them in our county.
Thank you. Next up, we'll move to what challenges do you anticipate with this role? And what will you do to overcome these challenges? We'll be starting with Jack.
I think that the biggest challenge walking into next school year is going to end up being the budget. We've seen what's happening at the federal level, we've seen what's happening at the state level, and I am anticipating some issues there. In terms of how to counteract this, I think it really relies on finding low cost and free solutions to the problems that we're going to be facing. Money is not endless, especially at such a local level. So if we really invest ourselves in thinking of creative ways to solve these problems that we're going to be facing in ways that don't necessarily strain our budget or don't necessarily require a lot of reallocation from different areas, then I think we can really work through that challenge.
Thank you. Michelle?
I think one of the biggest challenges is trying to get all the students' perspectives heard and listened in with our county because there's just so many different stories and so many different experiences, but making sure to connect with the students. And part of my platform is connect. And to make sure that we are reaching out to students, especially from diverse group, is not just having school visits, but also connecting with various school clubs. So not just having the SGA students, but people from the multicultural club, BSUs, Key Club, National Honor Society. Reaching out to those students who don't initially know about SMOB and connecting them is the most important part. And making sure to filter all those different ideas into a place that we can put in front of the Board of Education. But I just don't intend to represent, but to also empower students to also share their stories and experiences in from the podium. So definitely getting all these perspectives is the hardest part, but through reaching out, school visits, and communication, we can achieve that.
Thank you. Braden?
Similarly, I believe that being an accurate representative and an accurate representation of what AACPS students want is something that is very challenging. It's something that we've seen many over the years try to do, and that's really what every SMOB attempts to do. I believe that we must, when looking at decision and voting for things, we must, keep in mind what the common student has with what the majority of AACPS wants. And in order to do that, we must connect and we must, connect students and hear voices that many times go unheard. There are many voices in our county and in every community, there are voices that go unheard. Not because their voices aren't worth hearing, but because they don't know how they can have their voice heard. And so we must combat this issue of finding the common ground and finding what AACPS students want by connecting with students and establishing feedback channels throughout each community that can reach the student member on the Board of Education.
Thank you. So next up, describe when you have advocated for a passion or social cause that is important to you. We will start with Michelle.
So something I've advocated for, and since it happened this week with the signing, is Senate Bill 307. Senate Bill 307 works on increasing the student member of the board's compensation to be equal with the other board members. Now, this is important because this has been what has been happening before the years, but with recent legislation, it raised other board members except the student. And being the only student member of the board in the nation with full voting rights means that they're doing the same exact work. So it's important that we advocated to make sure that they receive the equal pay. So now, what did we do as students? Well, we wrote testimonies. I've written testimonies in both chambers for the House and Senate. I've also sent emails to previous mobs and current mobs in various counties to reaching out for their support in helping us with this bill. We've also lobbied in front and went to both the House and Senate. So through these actions, I help support with making sure to recognize this mob's role. Thank you.
Thank you. Braden?
Something I'm currently working on and something I actually had a conversation about earlier today during school. Earlier this year, or this past school year, I've gotten much more involved with special education and unified sports. And one thing I noticed throughout our county is, although all of our schools have programs there, at the county level, there was a disconnect and there is not much connection and blending of ideas. That is why I am currently leading an initiative to establish the first special education-led student council in the state of Maryland. I'm working closely with the Vice President of Special Olympics and various other teachers and staff throughout the state of Maryland and our county to advocate and to work together and collaborate to establish a council next year that will be able to meet and do many things to improve and have voices heard that otherwise would go unheard at the county and beyond level in our special education students.
Thank you. Jack?
Sure. So I would say one time where I've really worked to advocate on behalf of the students is at the MASC convention. MASC is basically statewide SGA. And I worked with a couple of other students and we drafted extensive revisions to their constitution. We combed through it. We said, what are the problems here? And we really worked to resolve them. And that ultimately ended at the convention with myself and Jason standing in front of over 1,000 different students and presenting this massive block of legislation that we believed should have been passed. Unfortunately, it did fail because of strong pushback from their executive board higher-ups that didn't really see things eye to eye. But it was really a lot of work that went into that, and it was really a great opportunity to show how much I care for the students of the entire state and of our county especially. Thank you.
Thank you. So next up, describe your leadership style. We'll be starting with Braden.
Thank you for the question, Jason. I'd say my leadership style is collaborative, making sure other voices are heard, whether it's, being the representative of our signature program or being the captain of my, club team. It's always trying to make sure that other voices are heard and represented. And I never want to go into a meeting, into anything and not have truth behind what I'm saying and not have the people that I'm representing agreeing and saying the same things I'm saying. And so by getting more voices involved in many of the programs and many of the clubs that I lead, we have been able to see a growth in numbers and a growth in a lot of different success. And so I'd say my leadership style is getting other voices heard and encouraging others themselves to lead.
Thank you. Jack?
I would say my personal leadership style really focuses on both leading by example and by listening. Especially in CRASC, as the parliamentarian, I lead the Constitutional Revisions Committee, and that's given me a great opportunity to sit down with students in these open meetings and say, hey, what do you think are the issues with this organization? What can we fix? And I've really been able to lead the charge for the currently proposed amendments through taking into account the perspectives and the different voices of every single member. In addition, I like to lead by example. I don't think hypocrisy is really a great thing, and I think we can all agree on that. And so I really try to embody the values that I'm pushing out there, and I really try to live what I'm saying. If I'm going to be representing this point of view, I really want to believe in that point of view, and I really want to be able to effectively advocate for the students by really taking in what they're saying and taking it to heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
My leadership style focus on being very adaptable, but also being a team player, making sure to bring that unification. So as you've heard in my speech and also many times, even when I refer to our campaign, I don't say this is my campaign. No, this is our campaign, because this is what we're pushing for as the students. So not just focusing on the SMOB and having the disconnect. This is your representative. I'm also a student. I also go through the school day and go through what it is like. So I reference I reference us. So being a team player and making sure to work with the students on what we can accomplish and also being adaptable. There's going to be many things that are going to happen that we know that's going to go on till next year. And there's going to be new things that occur. So making sure to work with whatever is going on in the current moment and addressing it at that point. And that's by listening to the students, making sure our voices are heard, and doing it together, especially as a team.
Thank you. Our next section will be platforms and stances. This next question will start with Jack. What are some goals you aim to prioritize, and how do you plan to achieve them in your one-year term?
I would say a lot of my goals are really focused around increasing the equity that we have within the different schools in our county and working towards an increased sense of mental health and really working to improve mental health of the students around the county. I know right now, especially in the smaller schools in our county, we do face more limited ranges of AP classes or just less choice overall in the courses offered. And so throughout my year, I'll be working as best as possible to make sure that we have students who are signing up for these classes and we have the funding to effectively teach these classes, because I don't believe that the school that you've been districted to should necessarily be limiting your opportunity in any way possible, because I do believe in these classes and I think it's extremely important that we're offering them. In addition, I'm going to be working on the mental health side to increase the services that we offer and reverse the trend of removing our early dismissal days to allow for increased early dismissal days so that students can really focus on themselves and have a little. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
So some of the things on my platform that I'll definitely prioritize, first of all, is the connection aspect. Because again, I feel like it's so crazy having a SMOB that's the only one in the nation with full voting rights, and not every student knows about it. So how are we addressing that? Again, utilizing various things like social media, having a website, and as our county is going from Brightspace to Canvas, having a Canvas classroom when anyone can join. I also want to do read alouds to elementary school to reach out to them, because the SMOB doesn't just represent middle and high school, it represents the over 84,000 students here in our county. So ensuring that they know about their SMOB and also know how to contact them. Because the best part of being a representative is making sure that they know who you are. So if they don't know the SMOB, then how can they reach out when there's a concern? How can they reach out talking about the issues of closed bathrooms, of not making sure that they feel heard or seen? So that is going to be the most important part in pushing it, and that is through utilizing various methods. Thank you.
Thank you. Braden?
A big goal of mine that I believe branches out to many other, leads to much more good, is establishing systems in each cluster for students to facilitate peer-to-peer relationships among schools, and for high schoolers of the cluster to go to their middle schools and say, hey, here's what we have in middle school, here's opportunities you have now, here's opportunities you will have in a few years in high school. And the same for middle schoolers, advocating for the programs that they have in their middle school, as well as establishing systems where magnet programs can go speak directly to students. In fostering these peer-to-peer student connections can lead to a lot more students getting involved, leading to more voices heard. And when there's more voices heard at the table, we can improve our clubs, our teams, and most importantly, our programs throughout the county.
Thank you. Next up, we'll start with Michelle. How do you define success when evaluating our school system?
Thank you so much for that question, Jason. And I would actually take it from the strategic planning, the quote that most of you have heard. I would define success as every student belonging, growing, and succeeding. Belong, grow, and succeed. What does that mean, and how does that look like in this county? That's making sure that every student walks in school feeling safe, knowing that they have support to achieve their goals. So that's the county goal. That's the county success right there. But it also looks different individually. It's about what you guys are doing after high school. So that might be college bound, trade school, or you might not know yet, which is okay. So making sure we support the county initiative of belonging, grow, and succeed, but also individual projects of what students are doing after high school and what they would like to achieve. And I define the success as just those three words right there.
Thank you. Braden?
I believe that success, the definition of success, is subject to the person and varies between each and every individual, in that success in my mind, is accomplishing properly set goals that are tailored to that person. And so by becoming a successful school district, we are providing opportunities for each and every student to be successful in their own way. My definition of success is not the same as anyone else's, nor is your definition of success the same as anyone else's. So when we have opportunities for all of us to connect and to grow and inspire each other, we can all, push towards that success and what it means for each other and for ourselves.
Thank you. Jack.
I think success is really measured in 3 categories: a sense of belonging, a feeling of happiness, and your future outcome. I think that in terms of student success, we really want to make sure that students feel like they belong in their school communities and that they can really do their best. And I think that also comes into happiness. We need to make sure that students are walking into school ready to learn, ready to really succeed in their school days, and just happy to be there. And I think that will contribute to our overall future outcomes, which I think is another important measure of success. I don't think it's necessarily about a standardized test score or a letter grade, but rather about where we're putting students in the future. At the end of the day, we are an education system. We are raising these people to go off into jobs, go off into trade schools, go off into colleges. And so by really measuring how far are we getting people in life? Are we really getting people to where they want to be in life? We can say, are we being successful or not? And how do we really course correct if we're not being successful? Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we'll start with Braden for this next question. Can you share with us what you would advocate for within the proposed AACPS fiscal year 2026 budget?
A big thing that I talk about is mental health, and I believe that our increase in school therapists and school psychs is extremely important to our mental health and to facilitating more support for our students. And so not only while advocating for that increase, also finding non-budget solutions and non-budget opportunities for students to increase their mental health, and then using what we can learn from those to advocate and to have evidence as to why we need more school psychiatrists and more school counselors to benefit our students. Because I believe that mental health leads to a lot of other growth, such as student success, school safety, and an overall sense of well-being and community. And so I will advocate continuously for more support for our students mentally so they can be in the right mindset and be prepared to have a great education and go on post-secondary.
Thank you. Jack?
I have a lot of goals, and I would say one of the largest ones fiscally is trying to bring about a school day ACT test. Currently, we do offer the SAT, and while that works for some students, it doesn't work for everyone, and I think it's extremely important that we provide students a choice. When we're talking about these standardized tests, we're really talking about a student's future, and especially now that colleges are starting to roll back their test optional policies, it's important that we're giving students the choice to take a test that will fit them best and work best with them. So by advocating for this within the budget, I think we can really work to ensure that students are given the best possible chance at going where they want to go. A good test score means a good chance at a good college, means a good chance at a good job, it means your resume is better, and it means that you walk out of high school feeling more accomplished. I think that this is an extremely important thing that we should be offering and that we simply don't right now under the current system. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
I would love to advocate for a couple things within the 2026 budget program. First of all, agreed with mental health. It is currently what is going on in our society. So making sure we have increased counselor and a counselor to student ratio that fits what's going on. Next up, I really enjoyed the implementation of preschool. I am a child care provider at my church, and I also take the Children and Growth Development Program here in AACPS. So I know firsthand what it means to have education brought to our preschoolers and the importance of it, especially as they transition from that setting going into elementary. So I love the implementation of that program. And also lastly, making sure to have preventative technologies in our school to address the school security, because that is important. Because no student should ever feel unsafe walking in school. And due to recent events and incidents going on in our county and also nationwide, it's important that students feel safe at every moment and make sure that schools are safe havens.
Thank you. Moving on to our next subject, equity. We'll start with Jack for this one. Can you describe situations where you've worked with diverse groups of students and how those experiences have influenced your perspective?
I would say that one of the most diverse groups that I've worked within is my own school. We are an extremely diverse school. We have a lot of different people from a lot of different places all across the county because of the nature of the program that we offer. And specifically within our SGA, we have different grade levels, we have different backgrounds, we have all of that. So really working within that and taking in those voices has helped me to shape our school into a better environment. And especially as the treasurer for this year, we've really refocused our SGA to focus on the students. But I think that's just one example. Another really diverse another really diverse group that I've worked within, I would say, is CRASC. We have so many different students, especially from different schools across the county, and I think that every single one of them does bring something unique. And so by working within that environment, I've really learned to take in these different perspectives. I know over the course of my year as the parliamentarian, especially in our Constitutional Revisions Committee, we've had some pretty big disagreements because people are coming with different. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
So I would definitely have to say, first and foremost, CRASC, the Chesapeake Regional Association of Student Council, they represent our county. In their executive board, they represent various high schools and middle schools and bring in students' perspective. Within our town halls, when it comes to the portion of student concerns, we hear a broad range of topics that are involved. So when we talk about diversity, that talks about representations from across the county. And taking it to another level, being part of MASC also shows, makes me listen to how broad of a range it is with education statewide. So it allows me to compare what's going on in our county with varying counties and also look at various solutions and ways of methods that they address issues and how we can implement that in our county. But also, when I was the first student keynote speaker at AVID, I'm not an AVID student, but reaching out to those students and seeing what perspective they had within our county was also a group I haven't touched upon, so it was really interesting. But I'll definitely say CRASC, MASC, and AVID, and other different groups across the county.
Thank you. Braden?
I believe learning from other cultures and, building that equity and building that diversity is extremely important. On the service team for the county, on the SSL team, I have learned from so many fellow service leaders from across the county and then been able to bring back those ideas and the leadership qualities I've learned back to my school to be a service leader and to lead projects, just like our signature programs, Diversity Week. I've been so honored to be a part of our signature program, and our Diversity Week is extremely important in celebrating our many different cultures that come from our school. And it's been extremely important to me. And I believe that we learn more from our peers and more from each other than we will ever be able to learn. And learning from other cultures, being able to celebrate other cultures on not only a school level, but on a county level can teach all of us on other cultures and different ways of life.
Thank you. And seeing the lights, we have one rebuttal. Michelle?
Sorry, not really a rebuttal, just to add on, it's also about showing up to events. I had the privilege when doing these school visits, Meet High School, Multicultural Night was phenomenal. So making sure to reach out to this group, it showed the diverse range in their school and it was just so beautiful. So making sure you have a SMOB that shows up to not just going in to hear their voices, but showing up at their events and seeing their cultures and their school community.
Thank you. Jack?
Also, just to add on, I think that over the course of my campaign has also been a great opportunity to speak with diverse voices. I've been up and down this county, and I continue to come up and down this county. I've been all the way down to Southern Middle School, the most Southern school in our entire county, and I'm working my way up to try and talk to every single student that I possibly can and take in the most wide range of perspectives that I possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our next question. How would you go about gaining input on school issues from across the county, particularly from community members and students whose backgrounds and perspectives differ from your own? Michelle?
Thank you, Jason. And I think I've already addressed this before, utilizing social media, having a website, and utilizing Canvas. But I also want to touch upon something else when doing these school visits. We hear a lot from the perspectives of students who are highly involved in their school. And I know that's a fact of being involved in multiple clubs, but I want to reach out to the students who aren't in class, who are going out in the hallways, who don't really appreciate sometimes going in school, because it's getting to know their perspective. If we really want to improve, we can't just be speaking to just a certain group of students, but making sure to reach out to those to see, why aren't you going to school? What is wrong about our classes? What can we do to improve on? This also makes them know that, hey, someone actually wants to listen in here, because they usually get underrepresented. So making sure when doing to school visits, not just talking to multiple clubs, but students who don't really feel included in their schools or don't really appreciate class, and see what we can do to improve as a school county to better fit their needs.
Thank you. Braden.
I so agree with the social media. I believe social media is extremely important in connecting our students, and I've been so privileged to have so many opportunities to connect with students through social media, not only as a student member on the board finalist, but with various other clubs and programs that I lead for my school. I also believe in going direct. Not every student has Instagram, not every student has a phone. And so by going directly to classrooms with videos or even visits can help those students that normally go unheard have a chance at being heard and having their voice shown. As I've mentioned, I've been in those classes. I've been in the lowest level of classes where I've been told that because of my GPA or because of the letters in my power score, because of the lack of the H in front of English class, that my voice doesn't matter and I will never be anything in this school system. And I want to break that stigma. I want to break those stereotypes and give students those platforms to be heard who otherwise would go unheard and not have the correct resources and support to build themselves as students.
Thank you. Jack.
I would say the most important thing here is keeping as many open lines of dialogue as possible. That means not only leaving communication through social media open, but also taking advantage of other methods. That could be in person, that could be digital. I know I have my website right now that will stay open if I'm elected. I have my email account. I have my DMs are open. And I just really want to make sure that students have every way possible to really get to me and help me understand their concerns. Also through in-person visits or through communicating with schools directly to make sure that they are telling their students that they do have representation and that they do have someone here who is specifically meant to represent their concerns. I think we can really make sure that I'm taking in every perspective possible, even from students who may not feel represented right now or may not know that they are represented and have a voice in that. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a light. Michelle.
And just something to also add on with the platform of elevation, that is expanding, again, this Mob Advisory Council by having open meetings. So having these open meetings to hear other student voice. It's not just about always going out and visiting schools, but also creating a platform where students can come in those virtual meetings, making sure it's accessible. They can come in those meetings knowing that they can share any concerns, any stories without being judged on, but making sure to actively seek that by creating those platforms where students can meet.
Thank you. See no more lights. Moving on to our next question. How do you differentiate between equity and equality in education, and why is that distinction important? I'll be starting with Braden.
I believe that equality says every single student has the same exact amount of support, while equity says each and every student has the amount of support that's right for them. As I've mentioned before, each and every student in this county is unique, especially coming from such a diverse county as we are. And so we must provide students with the opportunities and with the support that they need rather than the opportunities that we think they need. And so by talking with students directly and by having things like surveys and feedback channels, we can gauge and understand the support and the amount of support that students need. Because we do not want to use resources on students that may not need as much support, and then we do not give enough support to students who do need. And so by finding that balance and by providing resources to students who need more support, we can build a more equitable and a more successful and driven AACPS.
Thank you. Jack.
I would also say that equality is just saying that everyone gets the exact same thing, but equity really takes a deeper look at that. We need to recognize that every single student is a unique individual with their own unique needs and really provide for that. And I think even at the school level, every school is unique. Every school is comprised of unique students, and we need to take a more in-depth look at which schools may need more help, which schools may need more support. So part of what I'm here for is really to help make sure that schools are treated more equitably. I know that some schools in our county aren't at a 1-to-1 person to Chromebook ratio while other ones are. And I think it's really important to me that we reach we reach a level of equity for the schools where every school feels like they have the support that they need, and every student feels like they have the resources within their school and within their county to get the help that they need, which also goes back into my platform and my point of mental health. I really want to increase student services, and I really want to make sure that every student has this chance to get what they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
The first thing that comes to mind when I heard the word equality and equity that many of you might know is this image of a baseball field, and there is a fence over it, and there's different people with different heights, one tall, one in the middle, one lower, and they were provided all with the same box. But that doesn't mean everyone can look over and watch that same baseball game. But equity is providing everyone with the right amount of boxes so they can watch that baseball game. But let me go back and tie back in with the platforms. It's about, again, providing the right amount of resources for each specific school. And that's when I say with mental health, I just don't generalize it saying that, hey, around the county, everyone just needs more mental health resources. No, it's about working with the school wellness liaisons that have worked in their schools, already actively trying to create these opportunities. So this can mean having students be more informed, or more posters around, or maybe it's a connection with the counselors. So making sure to work with students specifically at their schools, make sure we address school-specific issues.
Thank you. Seeing the lights, I believe Braden was first.
I believe that in many cases, we can build upon this equity by pointing out and advocating and advertising and celebrating opportunities that are already present in our county. There are many opportunities that students are unaware about. So instead of going into this and saying we're going to reinvent the wheel and invent a million different programs, I believe we should first look at the programs we have and get more students involved so then they themselves can advocate for how they must be improved.
Thank you. Jack.
I just wanted to add that I think part of increasing equity and really working towards equity is taking advantage of the metrics we already have, really looking at each individual school and saying, what do these students have? What do these students need? And where can we fill in the gaps? Especially when it comes to mental health support resources. It's not fair to give every school the same thing when every school doesn't need the same thing. Every school has its own students with their own unique needs. A school may have a disproportionate amount of students who are suffering from depression or anxiety, and it's important that we're giving them the counselors and we're giving them the support they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
And to also add on, when we focus on equity, another word that comes to mind is making sure people are represented. So significantly working with people with disabilities, or first-time English language learners, and also school people of the minorities, is making sure that we represent them so we provide them the right resources. Because we should have it go into school, making everyone know that, hey, I do not need to think about not having a meal because I can't focus in math class. Is making sure we provide students with meals, making sure we provide them with English language development and other resources that we have here in our county.
Thank you. Our next topic is relationships with board members and interest groups. So we're going to have our fun question. If you were tasked with planning a board member outing, what would it entail? So we're going to start with Jack.
Okay, if I'm planning a board member outing, I think the first thing we're going to need is some food. I think everyone can be united by food, so I think that either means good catering or finding a really good local restaurant to bring them all to. I think that could really help promote a good sense of community between the board members. Besides that, in an outing, I think we should have something for everyone. I think we should invite every board member to bring their favorite card game or teach the others their favorite card game, and we can all go around playing card games and eating good food from some kind of good catering. I think it could also be fun to do like a board picnic kind of thing, like find a random field, throw down a towel, and just sit there. I think that could be really entertaining, especially if we brought like field games. I don't know. I kind of want to use lawn darts with board members. That sounds like a lot of fun. I hope nobody loses an eye, but we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
Right now, I'm thinking of the outing. It's in the summertime. You know, we're out in the field. It's going to be a picnic. And the first thing, the food that we're going to have, Chick-fil-A. But also having an ultimate water battle out in the field would be super amazing. I think in a safe way, but also just making sure to have fun at the same time. But if not a water like fight, maybe like, laser tag, a more safer option. But I think that would really be really fun having in different teams and working together, knowing each other. And yeah.
Thank you. Brayden.
Well, I can tell you if there's one thing all three of us agree on, it is our love for food. Our outing would be starting at, again, Chick-fil-A. I believe, I don't feel like cooking myself. I don't feel like just Chick-fil-A. I mean, simple as that. We have to start at Chick-fil-A. And for some reason, my mind first went to escape rooms. And so I think an AACPS specific designed escape room so everyone can work together and everything. I think that would be pretty cool. I do wonder who the person, who would sell and, not hold everyone back would be. There's always that one guy in escape room, so we'll have to see. And I believe an ACPS specific escape room is going to work together. And I did hear, I also thought about a maze, maybe like a maze, maybe a little like those big grass maze. So I think a maze and an escape room, some collaboration, some sort of puzzling, following our Chick-fil-A.
Thank you. Now back to more serious topics. How do you plan to navigate the political aspects of serving on the school board while keeping the focus on student needs and educational equity? We'll be starting with Michelle.
I'll make sure to focus on the students by making sure, again, we're hearing and listening to the different concerns, but also making sure by the end of the day that we know that we are representing the students and making sure to support them. I know that everyone on the board here agrees that it's about supporting the students and making sure they have the resources they need to succeed in life. But I would address the political part. And I would like to say to this, it's not about having a conservative agenda or a liberal agenda. The agenda that the SMOB has is the student agenda, and that is what is on the platform here today. So what does that mean? Making sure to address the issues that concern the students, mainly bathrooms, mental health awareness, school security, looking into the budget cuts and how this affects the programs here at Student. So again, making sure that the student agenda is the first priority when the SMOB is here in the meetings.
Thank you. Brayden.
Agree that it is inevitable we will run into these political barriers and these, we will run into this. Something that is inevitable to happen. I believe that by balancing it, we need to have transparent and open conversations so we can understand each other. Because no matter what, we will run into these. And so instead of running away from them, we must address them and we must be open and honest so we can understand each other's views. And agreed in where we are not here to, to pick a color. We're not here to choose a side. We are here all as students, representing students in order to build together a better student life and school system for all of us. K through 12, there are so many students in our county. And so we must not, choose sides or come into this with any sort of agenda. I believe in getting all voices heard and being transparent in where we may disagree on certain things so we can work together to find that common ground.
Thank you. Jack.
I said it during my opening, and I'm going to say it again. My number one priority here is the student body. I know that politics is getting rough. I know that it's getting extremely hard to ignore, and I'm not looking to just sit here and ignore it and pretend like it isn't happening. I think this is about staying informed on what's happening, not necessarily saying, oh, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, coming in with any kind of agenda, but just staying informed. What's going on? What's going to impact us? And how can we really work through that or find compromise through that? Specifically, I think it's really about focusing on students. I think all three of us can agree here. This is all about the students. And even though politics is going to play a role in what ends up happening, especially with our coming budget, I think it's important that we just stay focused on exactly what matters. And that's what I'm here to do for you.
Thank you. Our next question is inspired by a student from North County High School. How will you ensure every voice in AACPS is heard, especially outside of Crask? And we'll start with Brayden.
Again, I believe that's where what I stand for in the campaign of directivity. Going directly to schools, directly to students, I believe can foster a lot more connections. When we have these things that students aren't aware about, their voices can't be heard. And so I believe that by going direct and also finding ways where we don't have an influx of so many voices at once, maybe we divide it up. We go to certain schools and then we go to other schools. So then we can navigate these voices and we can, hear everyone in a manner where we can still organize all these thoughts. But by going directly to classrooms, directly to visits, directly to schools, and hearing from students directly, but also giving students those options to talk about things anonymously, things they may not, be comfortable sharing publicly, and giving them multiple options and different routes to giving that feedback to the Board of Education.
Thank you. Jack.
Throughout my time as a candidate, I've been doing everything I possibly can to crisscross through this entire county and speak with as many students as possible. And that work does not end if I become the SMOB. I think it's extremely important that we prioritize getting into schools. I would also agree with the idea of school visits. It's important to speak with students at their level and really where they are and feel most comfortable. And I think that's in their individual schools. In addition, I think it's, again, I know I spoke about this before, but I think it's important to keep up as many open lines of dialogue as possible. That means email, Instagram, website, all of that. Students who have social media, students who don't have social media, each and every one of them should be able to stay informed on what's going on and should be able to feel like they can leave their concerns and their questions with me so that I can help them. I can help them find a solution, or I can just provide them information on a topic that they may not be able to research or may not have this wealth of information on that I might be able to access as a SMOB. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
So I've already previously mentioned it. First of all, starting with connecting with school clubs. Again, this doesn't just look at SGA, but other clubs like BSU, Multicultural Club, National Honor Societies. So already seeking out their perspective already gives us diverse voices within our county. But also touching upon the fact of not just focusing on middle and high school, but working with elementary students, working with the younger ones, and doing this is by having read-alouds. Not just to say to have their input in, but to also connect them with a familiar face so they can trust the SMOB because they've seen them before. And also meeting with school clubs, working with elementary students for read-alouds, and most importantly, also having that platform where any student can join in. So that again includes having town halls and making sure that this is communicated widely on students able to join town halls so they can be like, hey, what is this SMOB town hall? They join in, they get informed. It's about getting informed, being transparent, but also having an effective communication.
Thank you. In this position, you will be contacted by many special interest groups within the community, such as TAC, CRASC, and the PTA. Is there one group whose perspective you would consider more than the others? We'll start with Jack.
So this comes back to my focus on the students again. And I understand that while there are so many special interest groups, and I will be having an open ear and an open mind towards all of their positions, at the end of the day, I'm here to fight for the students, and I'm here to really represent their interests. So in terms of specific special interest groups, I think CRASC will always have that open door with me. I really want to emphasize the connection between CRASC and the SMOB and make sure that let me back it up a bit. I think that CRASC is right now the best organization that we currently have at the county level to really represent the interests of the students. And so with that being said, I think that CRASC would be the organization that if I had to pick, I would be focusing most of my attention on or the most weight with. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
No, there is no one group I would consider more than another. It's important to listen to all sides of the stories, but making sure to prioritize the student voice. But it's important to listen to all sides because we have an effect. It has an effect on the student's life, teachers, parents group. It's important to make sure that you are not considering one more than others because you're going into a conversation with an open mind, willing to see what they have to say. But with it all, it's about balance. It's about balancing their perspectives, but also ultimately at the end of the day, seeing how it affects students and what we can do to move forward through those plans.
Thank you. Braden.
I believe teachers and parents are both extremely important to our fellow students. And I know personally in my life, just as in my opening, going back to my opening statement, speaking on how a teacher has changed my life for so much good. And my parents are the biggest role models to me, just as they are in so many of our fellow students. And so I believe that if we start to be biased and start to pick, what groups we favor more, we are not being, a fair representation of the entire county. So I believe that we must take in all voices and find systems where we can balance them and we can organize their thoughts.
Thank you. Jack, I see you have a light.
Yes, so I think while it is important to listen to every single group, I think we're also being elected here for a purpose. We have a student member of the board to represent student interests. And so while I will be considering every single perspective, I think that at the end of the day, it's about what matters most to the students, and it's about what the students feel would be best and what I think would produce the best return on investment to our students. So that's really the reasoning behind why I think it's important that we stay focused on the students. And I think especially CRASC is an organization made up of students by students. And I think that's really what gives them the most ability to represent the student interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
I just also wanted to add on a moment that I've got to experience is working with the Innovative Scheduling Bill work group. And that just shows that it's not just the student voice, but also listening to all perspectives, because it was a representation of our board members, students, and also community partners. These are important people that also have an influence and get impacted by the decisions we make. So making sure we listen to them, but also making sure that through any discussion, the student voice is part of that conversation.
Thank you. Braden?
In many cases, students, due to age or even possibly disability, may not be able to advocate for themselves and know what is best for them. Through my involvement with special education, I have connected with so many parents and so many different teachers who work closely with students. And even sometimes, if those students may not be able to effectively communicate, those teachers and those parents who are with them every single day are. And so that is why I want to balance all voices and then use those voices, those people who interact with students so frequently, to do what we can to advocate for our students effectively through taking in all voices.
One moment, Jack. Well, and Amanda, you're doing 30 seconds for rebuttals, right? Okay, just making sure. Jack?
I think that honestly, we need to trust the students to be able to advocate for themselves. We do elect middle school positions, even in CRASC. We elect our middle school coordinator, and I think that's really a show of trust to say that no matter what your grade level is, you can still recognize these problems and you can still talk about how they're impacting you. So I think it really is important that we do consider the voices of students at all levels, instead of saying, oh, they can't advocate for themselves or they're not able to in that capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more lights, moving on to our next topic, which is an important topic for this mob, providing student supports. So we'll be starting with Michelle for this question. What additional support can AACPS offer to English language learners, students with disabilities, and those from marginalized communities? And how will you go about advocating for that support?
Thank you, Jason, for that question. So to support English language learners, making sure to have more bilingual translator and resources that are already translated to help them in that process. And with students with disability, making sure we have special education helpers that can help them through the process, and making sure they know specifically what they need. But through those two programs, I also would love to implement a mentorship program. It's important that they're working with adults, but also working with students would allow them to relate to a certain level, but also feel included in part of the discussion. Because it's not just about sitting in a class and saying, hey, this person is working with the teacher. No, they're working with the students, and that looks different and gives a different vibe, positive vibes right there. And also making sure to support students of minority groups too is making sure their voice is represented, making sure we're providing meals, making sure we're also providing technology access to where it is needed. So again, implementing different ways to help these various groups, but ultimately with the students.
Thank you. What additional support can I already read that. Braden?
Being from the diverse school that I am, I have many teammates on varsity soccer that English is not their first language. And finding ways to communicate with them has been a journey and has been something that makes the team and helps me learn from these students so much. And I believe we should have representation for those students to this mob in each school on students that may not be able to communicate in English. And then with the special education, I will work closely with not only students, not only teachers, not only administrators, but everyone in special education to advocate for our fellow students. I am very involved in my special education, and through starting this special education council and working with the special education council and SMOB next year is something I look so forward to, because there are so many students who go unheard in our special education. It's something I am extremely passionate for and will not rest until those voices can be heard.
Thank you. Jack.
I think that when it comes to English learners, it's extremely important that we continue robust English, like English as a second language programs through middle and high school. I know in my elementary school where I came from, a lot of students there, English was not their first language, and I think that they did receive some amount of support, but that could always be more. And I think especially going into middle and high school, we shouldn't walk in with the expectation that every single student is going to know English very well, or that we don't need to provide the same level of support, because we really, especially in the state of Maryland, we have a lot of immigration. We have a lot of students and a lot of families where English is not the first language. And it's important that we're really providing robust services to every single English learner. In terms of students with disabilities, I think it's important to listen to them and listen to the robust body of research that we have on how best to provide special education, so that we can really implement the most scientifically sound policies and ensure that special education is being done effectively and with the same rigor and capability that we do our standard education. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a rebuttal. Michelle.
And this is just to add on with the special helping people with disabilities. I would also like to further on and go on to recognize the special education school. This is different from having the special education programs within high school. This is a school that helps with multiple students with disabilities. So making sure not to just visit different middle school and high school, but to also visit schools that focus just on that, to make sure they're recognized, and also highlighting the good things happening within our county.
Thank you. Seeing no more lights, we're moving on to our next question. How can the school system support students affected by mental health, and how will you help reduce the stigma of mental health with your position? We'll be starting with Braden.
Oh, I'm already on. Apologize. There are currently CTE is expanding base mental health programs, just like Children's Guild, throughout the county. And so this is another thing where there's opportunities there for students. They may just not be aware of them. And so once we can help students be more aware of these, and students can learn more about these programs, then we can say, okay, now how can they be improved? Now that you're a part of this program, how can they be improved? We cannot go and improve programs that people are not, that many people are not a part of. But once we get more voices heard, more voices aware, then we can come together and go and try to innovate and adapt these programs for everyone to be inclusive and for everyone to be able to benefit from them.
Thank you. Jack.
I'm so sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Yes, absolutely. How can the school system support students affected by mental health, and how will you help reduce the stigma of mental health with your position?
So I think that a lot of the work that comes into reducing the stigma is covered in my platform. First off, with encouraging the creation of an Avidum chapter in every secondary school. I think it's a really great organization. I actually brought some data with me. Avidum improves students' abilities to recognize oppression, has positive impacts on school culture, and especially importantly, lowers the stigma around seeking help. In addition, I think by increasing our student support services, especially when it comes to mental health in the school building, we can also reduce stigma. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, actually, no, not even that one. The Manning Family Children's Clinic says that in-school psychiatric support eliminates barriers and lowers stigma when it comes to mental health, which really means that by increasing these services and bringing this closer to every student, we can help with that stigma, and we can help every student feel safe in reaching out and saying that they need help. I think it's extremely important that every student feel like they're able to receive the help that they need and feel like they're not going to be isolated or stigmatized for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
To address the mental health crisis, I would want to first encourage the training and the continuation of training teachers on how to address it. Because let's be honest, teachers know the students first, then and there. And they know what they do normal, and they can see if something happens going wrong. So making sure that students know that not just your counselors are there to support you, not just your psychologists and therapists, but also your teachers and admins and principal. So when you walk into school any day feeling not yourself, you don't always have to go straight to counselors, but also your teachers are a good resource to talk to. And ways to reduce it, like mentioned before, is to inform students about those opportunities, but also to proactively ask students, what do you want to see in AACPS? What resources do you think would benefit students the most regarding mental health? And making sure to inform those students about that, training teachers, because again, it doesn't just happen in the counseling office, but also making sure to recognize when it's happening in classroom is important.
Thank you. Braden.
One thing I want to expand upon is that stigma. There is so much stigma that comes into seeking help for mental health, and students can sometimes feel so overwhelmed and to the point where they don't end up seeking that help. I believe we can combat this and budget by establishing different forms of mental health clubs and mental health systems in each and every school. In this way, we can not impact the budget, we can provide leadership opportunities, and most importantly, provide a sense of community and well-being for students to feel at home within their communities.
Thank you. Jack.
I think it's really important that we emphasize providing support services that aren't the teachers. Teachers already feel overworked and underpaid, and trying to train them on caring for mental health issues and trying to make them such an active resource is only going to contribute to that. So I think a lot of what I want to advocate for is making sure that we're providing the proper services that aren't in the form of just teachers, but in the form of counselors, therapists, and all of that. Thank you.
Michelle.
I do recognize that teachers are so important and they do so much work, but what if it comes to a moment when a student walks up to them and shares something that is in dire need? Is it something that they can go to another person to talk about? How do they address it then and there? It is important for teachers to know how to effectively address these issues because it's important and it's happened and I've experienced it before. Making sure to know who to reach out to, but also making sure they are trained to address it as there is important. But yeah.
Thank you. Jack.
So I absolutely agree on that point. I do think that in the most dire circumstances, teachers should be adequately trained in how to handle that and how to help a student find the resources that they need. What I'm opposed to is trying to make teachers a primary point of contact. Any issue shouldn't be something that you should be going to your teacher for, because we should have the services where we don't need to burden teachers with that, and we can make students feel as though they'll be accepted and that they have these resources available, whether it's in the form of counselors, whether it's in the form of therapy, whether it's in the form of different telehealth services that we could operate. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
I do think it's important that it's not saying it's the primary part of the contact, but it's important that it is an open opportunity. Yes, you have counselors, but you should also be able to talk to teachers as well. I don't see one as a primary. I see going into school as anyone I look at, any admin, any teacher, any person, any of them are supports. So there's no one primary one. Any person in our school system should already be supporting the student then and there.
Braden.
One thing I want to expand on from my original response to this is that peer-to-peer connection. We do have all schools, have counselors, have resources, and although they may not have enough, and although we will advocate for more funding towards them, I believe that in the meantime, we can also facilitate peer-to-peer connections so students can talk to each other and help each other grow as leaders and have themselves, build communities where they feel a sense of belonging.
Seeing as all rebuttals have been used, moving on to our next question. As SMOB, how will you work to address concerns regarding student safety, including bullying, harassment, and school security? Sorry, Jack will be starting this question.
I think the most important step in helping out with school safety is prevention. I think that weapons detection systems are great, but I think they are a huge budgetary item. And I think that it's really important that we get into schools early and really prevent this kind of conflict from ever escalating. Oftentimes, school shooters are in extreme mental peril. And I think it's really important that through not only providing more support services, but by providing more robust conflict resolution curriculums inside of classrooms, we can make sure that no student feels that this is ever a step they need to take. And overall, I think that would extremely improve school safety while making sure that we're not straining the budget too hard on this topic. I think it's also extremely important to foster a sense of community in each school. The more connected each student feels, the better things are going to turn out and the more safe they're going to feel in their school community, because they're not going to feel ever as though they need to resort to violence or any other method within their school. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
I would say to address school safety, I'm in support of the non-invasive weapons detection program that ACPS is looking to pilot into all high schools. I was listening in the board meeting, and the important part is to say that we do not want it to be a situation where we look back and say, what could we have done to prevent this? What can we implement it? We have fundings that we can put into it, so why not put it now? Because right now, it's not just about the students' academics, but looking right now at the safety. Because if any student is walking in school feeling unsafe, how can they properly, effectively learn? If we're talking about making sure to improve academics, if they don't feel unsafe, how can that happen? So having these technologies, even though it might remind them of the fact, it's important to make sure our students are safe in this process and making sure to bring mental health awareness in this part. Because we should not resort to violence when interacting with our peers, and you shouldn't go into school thinking that someone could do that to you. It's important to have resources.
Thank you. Brayden.
As mentioned, I believe that one of the main roots of issues in school safety stems from mental health. And that is why I am in so support of mental health, because I personally have people that were so close to me who, were misguided in school, and while outside of school, made decisions that changed their lives forever. And that's why I believe that we must support these students effectively and efficiently, and sometimes harsher punishments may actually result in worse circumstances. However, I do recognize that that is a long-term solution in mental health. And we must open up and have large conversations involving many different voices on this. This is a topic that requires many voices and different viewpoints, because it is a serious thing that needs to be taken action on, because our student safety, without student safety, there is no students. We must make sure our students are safe and can have an effective and proper education in a school environment.
Thank you. Jack, I see a rebuttal.
I just want to make it very clear that I am not against our non-invasive weapons detection systems. I think that that is a great program, but I think we need to be looking more long-term at the solution. Right now, we do have an active issue, and that means an immediate solution, but we also need to look into how we reduce this problem overall, because the final step in violence in schools is bringing a weapon into schools. So if we stop this, step one, step two, the conflict actually starting, keep these conflicts from starting or ever escalating through preventative measures, we can do a lot more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more lights, we'll be moving on to our last subject, which is current issues. So, if elected, you will be voting on a proposal for Phase 2 of redistricting during your term. What do you believe are the most important considerations to keep in mind before making that decision? Michelle.
So some things to keep into consideration when going in the redistricting program is the effects of the community. And that is what ACPS is already doing when listening and having these listening programs. Even right after the debate, they're hosting one right here and then. So making sure to listen to the communities and take into consideration on the effects. And that could look very different, ranging from students about their feelings of moving different schools, ranging from parents, how they think moving a different school environment because they're part of PTSA, so how that looks like. And for especially elementary students, how that goes on with transportation and communication. But again, it's mostly at the root of making sure to communicate and listen to what the communities believe, but taking into that consideration when moving on with the next phase plan. And making sure when moving on to communicate effectively why the reasons these decisions were placed in the first place.
Thank you. Brayden.
I agree so much of that. I believe there is a lot of communication. However, just like anything, there can always be more. We can always be more. There can always be more communication in these, and more direct to students, and have students, more students heard on this. One thing I talk about is transparency, and with this, in complete transparency, this is something that does not affect, my cluster. And when it did, it was not as spread out as some of these schools are. And so with that, I would do everything, and I have been communicating with students that are affected by these to hear from them. and see how they feel, because I am not, in that situation, and I will not be in that situation. And so by, talking with each other, and by, getting more voices heard, and having those honest and direct and just thorough conversations on all of the results, and trying to look at the bigger picture, is something that I intend to continue to do when it comes to our redistricting.
Thank you. Jack.
I think that we are a growing county, and with that comes redistricting. And I know that sometimes we don't really talk enough about it, or we don't talk well enough about it. So I think when it comes time to redistrict, we really need to consider how invasive it is to each student. Redistricting should be as non-invasive as possible. Just because you're changing schools doesn't mean your entire life is being uprooted, and I think we really need to take that into consideration. I think we also need to take into consideration the future impacts of redistricting. If we change these borders here, if we change these lines here, if we change this community here, how is that really going to change anything? What is it going to look like into the future? And how can we really make sure that every single student feels like they have an active role in the redistricting process? I think there are so many open conversations that we can have and that we need to be having about the impacts of redistricting, and especially really taking into consideration the perspectives of so many different people who are going to be impacted. It's not only students, it's parents, and it's entire communities that are impacted by this. And yeah, it's important to communicate. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, I see a light.
I want to just say that I understand the frustration of moving into a new school or moving into a new environment. As someone who started off and was born in Africa and moved here in kindergarten, I moved to different countries and it was really, really different. But I was glad to have the support from ACPS to assimilate into not just a new country, but also create friends through the program. And that's what I want to encourage when moving into forward, is how can we support these students who are moving to different schools? Because by the end of the day, thank you.
Thank you. Braden, I see a light.
To narrow down, on those specific students that will be redistricted, we must do a better job of giving them more opportunities to learn about what opportunities are there for them in their new school, And of course, there are different opportunities in different schools. And so when students are redistricting, they must be aware of what is there for them in their old school, or in their new school, because that can alleviate a lot of the fear and a lot of the worry in moving between two different schools, if you know what is there for you.
Thank you. Jack.
I think also in this vein of communication, I agree with what's being set up here. And I think it's important to make sure that when we're talking about redistricting, we're not just talking about it here in the middle of Annapolis. This is not the most central location to so much of our county. And I think that really impacts the breadth of voices that we're able to hear. I think it's extremely important when we're talking about redistricting that we're going all over the county and having these conversations in the communities that are going to be impacted to really get these voices. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
And just to finish off, the last thing that I was just about to say is also just like the questions that go on with students that I know when moving into another school, saying, am I going to still make that same sports team? Am I going to still be the president of this club? How can I belong in this community? And again, through orientation, through making sure we're transparent, will make them feel like they belong in the community. And it's not just the staff, not just the admin, but also the students. We should be here to support each other through the process.
Thank you. Jack.
I agree. And I think that in the process of redistricting, it's extremely important that we provide robust support services for students who are going to be redistricted. It is extremely difficult to move into a new school, especially if you're in those later years of high school. You're coming up on the end, and who really wants to spend their senior year in a brand new school? That's why it's extremely important to me that when we do redistrict, we're considering each student and the impact it'll have, and making sure that we're providing for the students and helping them to really adjust to a new environment, adjust to the new people they're going to be interacting with. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final question of the night, if you were not running for SMOB, who of these candidates would you support and why? We'll be starting with Braden.
See, now that is a great question, and honestly, if I were to, give you that answer, it would be 30 seconds of, both of the great aspects of these candidates. A big reason and why I am so honored to be here is because I'm, joined by these two, and it's really, really great to, go through this journey with people who are, my friends, in multiple different programs. And so it's been great to connect with them, and although we may differ on certain opinions, I respect the way they go about both what we agree on and what we disagree on. And again, just very, very proud to share the stage and be up here with them. And we can. Sorry, one more. I believe I can learn a lot from them, and I have learned a lot from both of my fellow finalists.
Thank you. Jack.
Okay, first off, talk about a loaded question. But if we're really bringing it down and we have to consider each individual point, I do think there is one person here who I would have to support, even if it's only that like 51% to 49% difference. I think that both of these candidates here with me today have extremely good points, and I think they would both bring something amazing to the role. I think you both are really honestly great people, and I think that you both would do your job well. But if it really did come down to it, if I was sitting here in the audience or if I was sitting there on election day and I really had to make this decision, I think my 51% choice would have to be Michelle. I think that her platform just brings something interesting that I like to see. And I do appreciate her perspectives. And I think that she's done good for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
Wow, what a question. Let me first start to say that I've known both of these two in various capacity, and so grateful to call you friends, whether it is knowing that you have a random honey addiction or getting to play pickleball. You guys are so amazing, and I've known you in various ways. Looking just through platforms and just knowing, I feel like, again, coming through that, to be honest, this is such a tough question. And I feel, and just to say, like, showing my fresh, like, my balance between the two just shows how incredible both candidates are and how I've just known them. And I feel like their platforms, all our platforms here are strong and really supportive of the students. But I'll have to say, by the end of the day, Jack, because of most of his platforms and the specifics, the details between it, and just knowing him and knowing that no matter what, like, he'll stand up for the students. And I think I saw that really with MASC convention, with so much pressure and heat from the crowd, he still kept on going with the amendments he had there.
Thank you. I see you late, Jack.
Honestly, I don't have a whole lot to say, so I'll keep the rebuttal quick. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Seeing no more lights, this concludes the question portion of our debate. Oops. Now we will hear closing remarks from candidates in reverse speech order. So we'll be starting with Braden.
Thank you to everyone, here in person and of course, virtually. Again, I'm honored to be here, and I am extremely looking forward to getting more voices heard, by increasing student involvement, facilitating new while we expand current mental health programs, and being the most versatile and accurate representation of our AACPS classmates as we can possibly be. As the student member on the board, I will do everything in my power to elevate student voice and improve student life for every student in the county. Because this is not, this is not about my community. This is not about me, not about my school, but about our entire Anne Arundel County Public Schools. And, there are 84,000 plus students throughout this entire county. And so I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to have been able to work with hundreds of students throughout our county and continue to work with these students and advocate for each other and for ourselves.
Thank you. Jack.
I mean, I don't really know how to close out something like this, but I'll just say, I think my number one focus is here with the students. I know I've said it a few times now, and I'm going to keep saying it. I'm here to fight for you. If you want the candidate who is going to persevere through everything this job could possibly throw at him to continue fighting for the students, I'm sitting right here. I hope I've shown that to you through the debate. I think I'm going to bring creative solutions. I'm going to bring common sense reforms, and I'm really going to be here for you all, because you all are what matters to me most at the end of the day. And I think that our students really are our strength, and our students are the ones that we're working for as an education system. The students really are what we're trying to shape, and we're trying to shape these students into successful adults. So again, thank you for the honor of being here, and yeah, reach out to me if you have any more concerns or questions.
Thank you. Michelle.
Thank you so much, AACPS, for tuning in and also just listening and coming to this point. to just say that in general, in the grand scheme of things, none of this would be possible without all of us working together. And again, the platforms that I've mentioned, it is really strongly rooted through every single one of us working together. And I'd also like to just mention like another topic I was interested in, like school lunches, definitely in support of making it more diverse and also doing taste testing. There was a field trip actually scheduled, so expanding this to students, because that is actually one of the biggest interests within our county. So I just want to put that in right there. But really, to end off the night, if you want to learn more about my platform, make sure to check out my Instagram at Michelle Force Mob to learn more about me. And please feel free to reach out to me with any question, comments, or concerns. But students, this election is not about me. It is about us working together to make AACPS a best place for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending or viewing the 2025-2026 Student Member of the Board debate for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Please join us for this mob Instagram Live Tuesday, April 22nd at 7 p.m. Details can be found on the CRASC website. Best of luck to all three of these amazing candidates at the April 24th election. For those of you attending in person, please feel free to stay a little while longer to chat with the candidates in the lobby. I'm getting told to stop. I hope